Hello, and welcome to today's webinar session. We are so excited to talk to you here today. You're about to learn how to build and ship mobile apps faster, better, and with higher quality. Today, we are continuing the webinar series about Visual Studio Mobile Center. No fears if you missed the previous sessions. Each session is independent from the others, but we encourage you to go back and watch the previous sessions as well. Today, you will learn how to move faster when working on mobile apps and how to enable quick iterations and cycles. We will show you how to get from a Git commit to building the app and distributing it to your testers or users, all in a few easy steps. My name is Simina Pasat, and I am a program manager in the Mobile Center team. My main focus is the build service we offer. And together with me is Josh. Hey Josh.
Hey Simina. My name is Joshua Weber. I'm a senior program manager with the Mobile Center team, and I'm especially passionate about distribution, really accelerating the delivery cycle all the way from commits to delivery.
And today we will be looking at exactly these two services, to the build service combined to distribution, which set up a great foundation for what we call the build, test, distribute flow. Josh, do you want to explain quickly what this flow is all about?
Yeah, for me, the important part of doing development is getting your product into end user hands. So if you're a mobile developer, that means building code, committing code, getting that code built, and then getting it actually deployed onto the end user's device. At times, that's a very difficult process to do the whole thing, and I think you should really take a holistic view to think all the way through what is the process that I'm going to take at all phases of development, basically from code commit all the way to the actual installation project process on that final device.
Awesome. Today, the session will take around half an hour or so, and we hope that you will learn a lot about Mobile Center. And this is a new product targeted especially for you, mobile app developers. As said, we will focus today on building a mobile app and distributing this app, something painful for many of us, especially when we talk mobile apps. Today we will show many demos. We will look how to manage users and control access to the app using distribution groups, how to set up continuous integration for automatically building your app, and how to get from a commit to testing and distributing the mobile app to your users or testers. If you're interested in other functionality of Mobile Center, you should go back and check out the links to the other webinars. You can post questions at any time in the comments below, and we'll do our best to answer them for you. Keep in mind that Mobile Center is currently in public preview, and all the services are free for now. So, you can try it out, you can try the demos that we are doing today, either with your own app, or if you don't have an app, feel free to clone the sample app we will provide at the end of the lab. The link of the GitHub repo is shared at the end of the webinar. As we speak today, I can imagine that every one of you has at least a mobile device in the hand, in the pocket, or on the desk. As I look on our desk, I see 2 iPhones and also a tablet. Not bad for 2 people. And for some of us, it's unimaginable to forget the phone at home even for a few hours. A few days ago, I forgot my phone at home and I completely freaked out. I didn't even know if there's a bus coming, how to get to work, if my friends are gonna meet up tonight. I had no idea what's happening. And there's an app for everything we do in our private lives. But even more than that, also in businesses, there's an app for everything. For instance, I could not imagine living without a messaging app for communicating with my remote team. Us developers have now the challenge to develop, ship, and maintain tens or even hundreds of apps. Not only the teams need to design and implement these apps, to test them and to deliver them to their customers. Additionally, they also need to ensure that the apps are working on possibly thousands of combinations of devices types, operating systems, screen sizes, languages, and so on. And over the past few years, we've seen a myriad of services and tools coming to the rescue for mobile developers. Let's think for a moment what happens once, as developers, we start working on an app. It is much more than plugging a mobile device into the laptop and coding away. After we are ready to push the first commit to the repo, a build server can take over and automatically build the app, run unit tests, automated UI test, and then distribute the app to the internal team for testing, to friends to brag about the latest features, or to a manager to show him our progress. And once we start using an app, as users, we hate when an app is crashing, right Josh?
Yeah.
It's the worst.
It's terrible.
As developers, we want to monitor the usage of the app and find out as soon as possible about issues our users might be facing or about how the app is being used. This data helps teams to prioritize their work, iterate faster, and finally keep their users happy. And in the end, that's what we all want, right? Happy users. There are so many services out in the market to help you with each of these needs. So many tools to choose from. Each of them with a separate account, different UI, different APIs, and multiple SDKs. So much overhead, when all we want is to develop and ship beautiful, useful apps for our users. Our team here at Microsoft, we looked how we can improve this and bring all the services that you, mobile developers, need right here into a single product. This is Mobile Center, mission control for your mobile apps. Visual Studio Mobile Center lets you automate your entire mobile lifecycle, continuously build, test, and deliver your apps, learn from your app's usage and diagnostics data, and add the power of Azure Cloud Services, for instance to enable features such as identity or tables. We are super excited to bring all these features under the hood of one single product, and to put a great user experience on top of it. There is also a public API for all the features you find in the UI. And Josh, I think we'll look at this later, right?
Yeah, we'll definitely take a look into a little bit of the APIs. What was really nice to me about joining the Visual Studio Mobile Center team was some of the philosophies that we took when we first started building the product. The first one was really following the Unix philosophy around interoperable, independent, single service tools. And so each one of our services can definitely operate independently. You don't have to take advantage of any of the other tools within the product, but we definitely feel as though you get the best comprehensive experience by having some consistency across all your tools when they integrate together. Like today, we're going to show off how you integrate together the build and distribution services. So for example, if you have something, you can definitely use them independently. So if you already have a Jenkins server infrastructure set up, then it'd be very easy to go into our APIs, automate that Jenkins server to automatically integrate with the distribution beacon so that you can get that delivery from your own build infrastructure into that. If something like you really like the crash experience, but maybe you are already invested into an analytics solution, you can use the fact that our SDKs are very highly modular and very much open source. And so you can make it so that you use just the SDK for crash collection. By configuring it with the modular approach, the SDK won't collect any additional data, just the crash data that you absolutely need, so that you can still use those other services. So I think that's definitely an advantage of how we've done the philosophy for our development of this product.
So we hope that with Mobile Center, you can continue to do whatever you're doing best. Write great mobile apps, and all you have to do is to commit the changes to a repository somewhere. After each commit, our build service will build and sign your app. Once the build succeeds, the device cloud can perform an expensive set of UI tests on thousands of our devices. And these are real devices hosted by us in our cloud. With the UI test passing, it is safe to distribute the app to internal and maybe external testers as well. And once these users have their app on their device, our SDK and crash service will monitor crashes and inform developers of the root cause. We all hate crashes, as I was saying, and we want them to be fixed as soon as possible. Mobile Center really helps you to iterate very quickly in your app, and shortly after a bug is fixed and pushed to the repo, have it distributed to your users. Josh, I hope that people are already eager to see a demo. So should we go ahead and jump into the distribution part of the demos?
Yeah, let's take a look at some demos and see some real function code and behavior. So here we are at the login screen for Mobile Center. You'll notice that we actually have integration with both GitHub and Microsoft accounts. That's Microsoft accounts for both MSAs and Active Directory accounts. For this demo, we're going to go ahead and show the linking with GitHub. So I simply click into my GitHub account and log in here. And so logging into GitHub provides the OAuth for my account that's already created. And we end up at the landing page for my application. Here we have basically an empty Mobile Center experience like most of you will experience for your first time logging in. In this case, we're going to go ahead and just create a new application. As you can see from the selection, the app that we're about to take here is an iOS app based in Objective-C, but you'll notice that we support many other platforms as well. So we definitely support both iOS and Android code. We support native code in both Objective-C and for Android doing Java. And we also support some of the cross-platform solutions such as React Native and Xamarin. So we'll go ahead and just create this application. So as you can see off to the left, you'll see that we have all of our services quickly available to you. In this case, we're going to start off by showing how to do distribution of a build. In addition to our navigation model, you might notice that as a new user, you'll see this intercom button down here in the right. I highly recommend that if you guys have any questions while using Mobile Center's solution, just go ahead and click on this button. You can type a new conversation to us, and you can see anything or get support requests directly from us by using this intercom. And you should find that the team will respond very quickly to anything that's happening in your application. And as always, as we're a preview product, we love to hear feedback. So even if you just want to reach out to us with a good job or something that you'd like to behave a little bit differently, just go ahead and send us that message. We'd love to hear from you. So drilling here into the distribution beacon, you'll notice that by default, we have already set up one that represents all of the collaborators, the developers that have been added to your application. But in this example, I'm just kind of a single developer, and so I'm going to distribute my application to a small team of other users. So the first step here is to really create that team of users. So I'm really liking to do beta testing, so I'm just going to call it my beta team. And I'm going to add a few people. Simina is definitely a collaborator on this app with me, so I'm going to add her as well.
Yay, I got the rights.
That's right. She gets access to everything. So let's Simina. I also have a couple of co-workers on this application as well that act as basically testers. And so we're going to add these couple of testers into the application as well. And then as a final thing, even though I've been adding basically co-workers and collaborators for my company, which is working really well, there's no real limitations in Mobile Center for distribution that needs to have a similar identity. And so you could very easily distribute it to people outside your company. The only requirement here is that they need to have an email address. And so I'm going to simulate that by adding my personal email address, which just exists as a regular Microsoft account just with the live ID. And so we go ahead and add just my arbitrary email. And so with this, we can just go ahead and instantly create this group. And now we can use this group in the future for all of our distributions. And so distributing a release through Mobile Center is as simple as drag and dropping. So here we'll select the distributed new release. We'll just do a new release. So we just go in here, we select our IPA file that I've already created, basically manually through using Xcode, and then just simply open it. So this is going to upload the IPA file into Mobile Center's cloud backend. We're going to do a little bit of processing on that. We're going to detect the versions automatically for you. We're going to pull the information about the provisioning profile. This provisioning profile is especially useful as it's the leading cause of installation failures for that. So this helps you to keep a little bit of a check on yourself to make sure that the provisioning profile that you thought you used at development time is the one that's actually applied to that application. And we do some additional stuff like show you the minimum OS and the actual package size. In addition to that, you can definitely type a little message to your users. Here, I'm letting everybody know that I'm releasing this super awesome app and they should definitely be trying it out. And then we can just go through the wizard steps. So we'll go ahead and this time we are going to go ahead and select that beta team. So we know that we're going to take that IPA package that we have and we'd like this group of beta testers to have access to that group. as we continue through, we're going to get a little bit of a review about what's going to happen. You'll notice that this is basically telling us that when we click the distribute button, we are going to notify via email for people, so you can keep track of what's actually going to happen, so you can worry about spamming your users. And then you can go ahead and click distribution.
I guess I'll even get a notification because I forgot to set up the not disturb on my Mac. So
you should definitely will get the notification about this right away on the Mac itself. And so that's all there is to it. That's basically triggers the distribution flow. And so we'll send out the emails to all the users about their application. So let's look at the actual installation experience that your testers will actually experience. And so we'll swap over here to my mobile device. And you'll notice that on my mobile device, I'll simply navigate into my email. It's up at the top of my email. I actually have the email that was just released. It will show me the new version of this application, shows me the details and the version info for it. It lets me just make a single click, and I can go ahead and navigate to the download. This converts you over to our mobile installation experience. My credentials were already crashed, so it takes me directly to the latest version for the specific app. We can see which version this is. We can see which OS it's targeting. We see the full release notes that came along with it, in this case talking about how awesome this app is. And then we simply have an installation experience that's as straightforward as just clicking the single install button. Clicking that button triggers the operating system's built-in installation process. So we can click the install there and start the OS's install. We then just go over to the home screen and we see the progress indicator for the app on the icon. And that's all there is. Just clicking on the app starts the application. Since we are sideloading the application onto the device, in this case we're using an enterprise provisioning profile for this application, we do need to trust the certificate. Trusting a certificate is pretty straightforward. You go into settings, then into general, then down to device management, and you'll see the enterprise certificate is already there. So you just click on it and then click trust. Once you do this trust, it's just a one-time process. So all installs of the app from the certification will be able to skip this step. Once again, we navigate to our application and start. We see the application start up normally. The demo app I'm showing off today is the Cognitive Services Face demo. It's part of the Cognitive Services suite. It's actually a pretty cool demo of machine learning. It does basically automatic machine learning of facial images from images or camera captures. So it will detect things in the image, like the difference between face and landmarks. It can even identify gender and age, which is pretty cool stuff. And then you can actually compare different images to see if the same person is in each image. It will also do grouping across a set of a lot of images with lots of faces. And it'll actually do identification. So once you train the system up, you can actually identify users by facial recognition. I definitely recommend you check out this demo app and the Cognitive Services API in general. It's pretty exciting to see some of this machine learning stuff that's automatically built in. In this example, I just dragged and dropped an IPA file from my machine that was developed locally. But like I mentioned earlier, we have a pretty rich set of APIs. If you wanted to integrate this with your existing build server, it's pretty straightforward. You simply navigate to our documentation, then navigate over to our API docs that are underneath reference. You'll notice that it takes you to a different site. That is because we are making use of Swagger for our APIs. We really like the Swagger approach for our APIs. It does basically both the API definition and the documentation based on the same content. So you could take a look at something like the distributes APIs, and you will see every call that our web app takes is fully available and documented. So this is a pretty essential part of our API first philosophy. In addition, since this is a real Swagger file, you can use the Swagger tool to generate your own client app code. Overall, a pretty rich experience for integration with Mobile Center via the APIs. And so in addition to integrating build server, we definitely like to show off here with Simina our own CI build system to really demonstrate how you can use the Mobile Center CI and distribution beacons together.
And I think some of our listeners might be using already a build service. But what we've heard from many people, and from many mobile app developers specifically, is that they don't really enjoy setting up a build server And usually it's a pretty painful process that requires really an expert to set it up. And we've heard this pain, and we really took a new approach with a build service in Mobile Center. And I'm really excited to show you today how you can set up a new build service for your mobile app with only a few clicks. So let's see how this works. I will now go to the Build tab to see the functionality of the build service. And here, since Josh was already logged in with his GitHub, I can see here all the GitHub repos he has access to, and I will be able to set up the build for these mobile apps. Now, notice that for now, we only have support for GitHub repositories, but we've heard from our users that they would really love to have this functionality for code hosted in Bitbucket or in Visual Studio Team services. And as we talk today in the webinar, our developers are hardworking, and they're adding support for Bitbucket and VSTS repos, and we hope it's going to be available this spring. So now back to the GitHub story. We have here all Josh repos, and I will go ahead and select the Cognitive Phase iOS app, which is the example for the cognitive services, how Josh was saying. So I'll go ahead and select this repository, and now you can already see here all the active branches in that repo. So as a developer, if you want to, let's say, start building from the master branch, which is something that we've seen most of the people are doing, you can go ahead, select the master branch. If you want to later set up a build for a feature branch, you can go ahead and set it up as well. So for now, let's select the master branch, and you can see here this branch was not set up. Well, obviously it's a new app, so I'll have to start setting it up. And here we do some magic. As soon as we have access to your repository, we start analyzing it on a platform-specific basis. So in this case, as Josh was saying, it's an iOS app written in Xcode. So we look at the specifics of an Xcode project to populate all these fields. We do the same for Xamarin apps, for Android apps, for React Native apps, for everything we support. So now, specifically for Xcode apps, for iOS apps written in Xcode, there are a few concepts that iOS developers are very familiar with. One of them is the project or the workspace, and people use either one of them to build their apps. In this case, you can see here a hint that the project is using Cocoa Pods, so we will want to select the Xcode workspace. And as soon as you select a workspace, we in the background understand whether your workspace has also Cocoa Pods dependencies and whether we have to install Cocoa Pods, so we'll just run everything on behalf of you. Now, the scheme is also something that most of the iOS developers are familiar with. In this case, I will select the example scheme, which is the scheme for the iOS app itself. The other one is the scheme for the library, which we don't care for this demo. Now, there's a small gotcha for the scheme, and that's it, that when you start an Xcode project, by default, the schemes will not be shared. So you will have to go in your Xcode project configurations and to edit the schemes to be shared. This means that as soon as you push this change, we or any other CI service is going to be able then to see the configurations that you want to be used for building that project, which are contained in the scheme. Now, about Xcode versions, we support the latest Xcode versions starting with Xcode 7.3.1. So for you as a developer, it doesn't really matter if you are developing your project in a previous Xcode version. Chances are we are going to support. And from your side, you don't have to worry about, about keeping the right Xcode version on the build server in sync with whatever is on your Mac. It's everything for you as a developer is extremely easy. So Josh, Xcode 8.1?
Yeah, I think I used the latest one, 8.2.1.
Okay. So I'll go ahead with this. And these three options is all you need to select for an Xcode specific project. The rest of the options are things that are similar regardless of the platform that you're using for developing your app. And one of my favorites one is build on push. Some people call it continuous integration. We call it build on push. And what this really means is that as soon as somebody does a git commit and a git push to the repository, the build service is going to pick up that change automatically and start building the app, testing it, distributing it, depending on what the settings are. And especially when a bigger team is working on an app, this is really, really useful because the chances that somebody breaks the build and you don't know about it are not existent anymore. The second option is for running exit tests. These are Xcode specific tests. It's their first-party framework that they support. And here again, we do some magic for the user. So you can see here that the shared scheme is an example scheme. And in Xcode, this scheme also has a test step, which has some tests that will be running. If the scheme would not have tests to be running, as a user, you'll not be able even to select this toggle because, if you don't write tests, there's no test to be run by the build service. So I think Josh gave a really good example, and as a developer, he was committed to write a few unit tests.
I do like unit tests.
Well done. And if the unit tests are passing, the next natural option that we want to take is to distribute to the distribution group that Josh has set up previously. To do that, on mobile devices specifically, you need to sign your builds. And this is a safety measure taken by the manufacturers and by the operating system. So Apple specifically wants that no untrusted apps get installed on the Apple devices. And to do that, we will have to sign the builds. As Josh mentioned, we will use the enterprise certificate profile, something that we use here in Microsoft. So now let's go ahead and select the provisioning profile and the certificate. The certificate is password protected, so I'll go ahead and type here my password.
This is a really nice feature that I've always really liked for Mobile Center. I actually hate doing Xcode builds purely because of the finding problems. It's always hard to get it to select exactly which provision profile you want, which keychain certificate file you want, and in this case, it just directly lets you add them in.
Yeah, and we even have a cool feature here. So as a developer, if you mistype the password, we will detect it even before you start kicking off the build. Yeah, so it's like really, it should be very easy. Okay, so now I signed the build. Josh, let's try to distribute it to your beta testers. You see here there's two distribution builds. One is the collaborator group that Josh is the boss of. He's the only collaborator.
Definitely looking for more contributors.
And for this specific example, we'll use the beta team group. I will now click Finish Setup. And as I do that, a new build is automatically queued. And it's just gonna start. It's gonna start building anytime soon now. Now I really like this view because you can imagine once multiple builds start being queued off and then completed, you will see here in the status whether it was failed, succeeded, or cancelled. And the times when somebody would ask in the team, "Hey, who broke the build?" are long gone. Yeah. So Josh, if you break the build, everybody will know.
No, I'm pretty sure that's never me. Like I would never break a build. Somebody else is probably should probably go look at that and figure out what.
Sure. Okay, so now let's have a look how the build looks like. And you can see here that these are the actual streaming logs that we stream while the build is running. So let's have a brief look how these logs look like. Okay, we start with getting the sources. Well, that's somehow expected. We need the sources from your repository to be able to start the build. Once we get the sources, we will tag the build with different things here. Then we will install the certificates and the provisioning profiles. A whole bunch of things here. So I hope now you have an idea of how these builds are running. But something really exciting and a pain point that we've heard from many developers trying to set up a build service was actually the need to have a Mac hardware. And as you noticed, I really showed here the first run experience, and there was no single point where I had to configure any of this. And this is because with Mobile Center, we provide our own Mac hardware, and each of the builds that you run are actually running on a clean VM on our Mac hardware. And this VM is very secure, it's isolated. And in fact, as soon as a single build is finishing, we will discard that VM. And nobody will ever be able to look what was in that VM. Unfortunately, not even us when we try to debug things for you guys. Not having access to the VM, it can be a bit challenging, but it's all for security and to make sure that your code and your builds are safe and there is no chance that anything bad is going to happen with them. And while I was talking, this build took 1 minute 24 seconds and it was signed. And I can see here section finishing create distribution. So I think I can safely assume that the build was now distributed to the testers, to the beta testers. So Josh, should we check out?
Yeah, we could check it out.
Let's see. Distribute beta testers. Releases. Oh, and I have 2 releases now. One was done just now. So yeah, it seems that the build worked. It took just a bit over 1 minute. I was able to distribute it to the testers, and I might have talked a lot because I wanted to show you guys all the options and all the magic that we do on your behalf. But to set a build up and to distribute to users actually only takes a few minutes. Like, I'm very familiar with the UI, so I can do it, I bet you, in less than 1 minute.
Thanks, Simina. This demo's been really great. It's really exciting to see how fast you can go from all the way from basically doing a code commit through the whole full build process, and then actually getting a distribution that's installable on devices is pretty exciting. So let's go ahead and swap back here, and we can wrap up the webinar. So we like to say that you can do continuous everything with Mobile Center. What we really mean by that is that the entire develop, distribute, observing and monitoring your users, and then evaluating and understanding those users to get insights into the next iteration of your app can really be automated through use of Mobile Center. And so today, Simina and I showed off the develop and distribute portion of this flow. Also part of that flow is the testing process, where you can use the Mobile Center test service to take actually real UI tests on real physical hardware that we run in our data centers to really automate that testing across a lot of devices. A pretty powerful scenario, especially for that development feedback cycle. Within Mobile Center, we also have a full support for monitoring services, really around things like crash analytics and user analytics for behavior tracking. I'm actually pretty passionate about the user behavior tracking. I think that to have a successful app, you really need to be monitoring the real experience that your users are taking and really understand how they're interacting with your app in order to really evaluate that application, make the right decisions for moving forward. And once again, with continuous everything in Mobile Center, we also have links to things like the identity and table service that make it very easy to set up the backend systems that you need to be successful with your app. And so I definitely recommend everybody to take a look at the additional information that we have shared. You can definitely get started today by going to aka.ms/Mobile Center. The accounts are definitely free. All you need to do is log in. If you use something like GitHub or your Microsoft account, there's not even a registration flow. It's all done automatically, and you can start using this right away. We showed off a lot of different stuff in this webinar, and so if you'd like to get some of the links to some of these resources, you can definitely go and see the demo source code at GitHub there at Microsoft Cognitive Face IO. You can also definitely explore our full set of Mobile Center documentation at the link there, aka MS Mobile Center Docs. And we definitely recommend that if you're curious about those other services, you want to rewatch this service, that you really check out the full webinar series there that we have at aka.ms/Mobile Center webinars. So thank you very much. Simina and I were really happy to have you along to talk to us. We'll definitely be online here for a little bit more if you'd like to answer any questions. And we'll see you all soon. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.